Hello guys, in our previous series we discussed HTML in details. In this series we are going to discuss CSS. We are going to explain the basics of CSS from beginner to advanced level. Now today we are starting with introduction to CSS. What is CSS? CSS is simply called cascading style sheets. It is used to style elements in our page. Like it is used to apply uh, some properties or presentation to our HTML documents. So how does CSS codes look like? The first thing, whenever you are starting CSS, the first thing is the selector. You are going to declare a selector. If it is an a heading, paragraph, block, div block, just name any HTML element you want to apply the CSS to, then you specify the selector. And after the selector, you're going to start with curly brace. Yes. Within the curly brace, open curly brace and the close curly brace, you are going to define your CSS code. And most of the time, whenever you want to define your CSS code within this curly brace, you'll be having property value pairs. Yes, you define a property and you give it the value. The property, example of a CSS property is color, background color, font size, font weight, font family, text decoration, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of CSS properties which we are going to look at in more details as we progress in this CSS lesson. So we have properties and value pairs. That's what you'll be working with most of the time in CSS. So within this open curly brace and close curly brace, you have your CSS codes. So the start of the open curly brace and the code and the close curly brace defines the CSS block of codes. And whenever you want to apply some properties to HTML elements, you use selector. And I've said it earlier that selector are paragraphs, heading, name it any HTML element, body, and so on and so forth. Just apply the properties using the selector, then you define your CSS block of code. Then let's move on. So what is CSS? CSS stands for cascading style sheets. CSS is a style language which specifies how HTML document is displayed. CSS is used to structure web documents such as XML, HTML, SVG, and so on. CSS is used for laying out and structuring web page. Yes, it is used for layout, for structuring of web pages, and so on and so forth. CSS is applied in animations. Whenever you want to apply some animations or transitions in your HTML document, you make use of CSS. Yes, it is used for to lay out. It is used to lay out your HTML document, like used to for structuring your web page. So these are the usefulness of CSS. So CSS code example. This is how a typical CSS code looks like. You see, start with a curly brace. Then within the curly brace, we have our CSS properties and value pairs. There is asterisk which define that all the elements in the HTML, all your HTML elements, this CSS properties is applied to all the HTML element. That is the selector, asterisk selector. Then within the selector, then after the selector, within the open curly brace and code close curly brace, your CSS codes then is applied. So that is that. That's this how CSS code looks like. So what are the differences between HTML and CSS? HTML is used to create content and structure of a web page, while CSS creates presentation and styling of a web page. Yes. Addition of HTML and CSS makes a complete web page. Whenever you are creating a website from scratch, you're going to use HTML and CSS to achieve that. So say HTML for content creation, that is, you specify some element, you want to create some element in your web page, you use HTML to create that. And CSS for presentation, that is, you want to give your HTML document, or you want to give the HTML elements within the document, you want to give it some certain set of styles. You want to change the presentation, you want to change the look, then you are going to use CSS. So that is that on the differences between HTML and CSS. So by God's grace, we are going to take us through more about CSS as we progress. Thank you very much.